Hello, and welcome to our webinar on why an Indonesian tech unicorn is coming to Australia. I'm Helen Brown, your host for this event, and it's lovely to have you with us. I acknowledge the traditional owners, the Kulin Nations, of the land on which the Centre's office is located, and the City of Melbourne, from where I am hosting today's webinar. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Now, we've got a fantastic panel to talk to today, as you know, but to open this event, I would like to welcome George Iwan Marantika, President of the Indonesia Australia Business Council, a well-known friend to Australia, and he's going to now formally open this event for us. Terima kasih, ya Pak. Silakan.
Terima kasih, Ibu Helen Brown. Thank you, Ibu Helen, a good friend of Indonesia, and you have always promoted Indonesia and Australia. So thank you for moderating this event as the head of communications and outreach of the Australian-Indonesian Center. I would like to, first of all, thank the organizers of this event, which on behalf of IABC are collaborating with, and that is the Victoria government and for the Office of Trade and Investment, the Commissioner, Ibu Rebecca Hall, who is also the head of VGTI, but also in IABC on our board of advisors in IABC. So I want to thank the Victorian government, and also I want to thank AIC, which obviously is an organization that has promoted and advocated Indonesian and Australian collaboration, especially in higher education and research. And I was grateful to partake in its initial establishment way back many, many years ago with Professor Abid Khan and Eugene Sebastian. And now I'm very happy to see AIC play this significant role of promoting and advocating collaborations between Indonesia and Australia, especially in the higher education and in the research sector. And applied research and innovation is what we're going to be talking about today. And I would also want to thank Bukalapak, the famous unicorn Bukalapak, which obviously is a leading unicorn in Indonesia. And I'd like to thank Willix Halim, the CEO, who will be partaking as a panelist today. And obviously, Pak Willix is, from what I've been informed, is an alumni of Victoria or Victorian University. And so I think this is a great match and a great fit in terms of the topic that we are going to be talking today. So I also want to thank the panelists, Ibu Rebecca Hall again, the Commissioner for VGTI for the Victorian government, Kendall Draper, the Global Talent Officer of Southeast Asia, Australian Department of Home Affairs, and again, Pak Willix Halim from Bukalapak, and Dr. Eugene Sebastian, who will be providing the closing remarks as the Executive Director of the Australian-Indonesian Center. The topic that we are discussing today is a very significant topic and a crucial topic in terms of the milestone that it presents within the Indonesian-Australian Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And that is why an Indonesian tech unicorn is coming to Australia. And the way that we observe this is that this is the convergence. This is the part of the convergence of the Indonesian-Australian landscape that is a critical part of taking the collaboration between Indonesia and Australia in terms of the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement into the next level. So beyond the traditional trade of the two countries, we are taking it to the next level in which it is human capital development. And this is what has been envisioned by the Business Partnership Group, or the BPG, which consists of IABC, AIBC, our sister organization in Australia, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or called KADIN here in Indonesia, in our sister organization, ACCI, and also the Australian Industrial Group, and here APINDO. This Business Partnership Group had envisioned in terms of the IAC for many, many years ago, and recommendation to the governments of Indonesia and Australia, an ecosystem approach towards the knowledge and digital economy. And if Steve, thank you again for handling all the technology here. If you could put to the surface of the slide here. Yes, thank you. So this is the ecosystem that we had envisioned many years ago in terms of the IACPA, how centers of excellence, innovation centers in Indonesia and Australia, through research and innovation and incubation, can work together, working with industries in Indonesia and Australia. In this case, an industry in the digital economy such as Bukalapak, and therefore achieving together opportunities in both markets, in Indonesia and Australia, but also the global market. So this is a very significant milestone of evidence, the establishment of the Bukalapak Technology Hub in Melbourne, working with the Victorian government, and I thank again the Victoria government in this respect. This is a significant milestone in the IACPA as evidence and proof that the IACPA is working, it's doable, and it will take to the next level the Indonesian and Australian economic partnership and relationship. And so therefore, I salute this webinar today, and I want to thank the panelists again who are involved in this webinar. Ibu Rebecca Hall from the Victorian government, Bapak Willix Halim, the CEO of Bukalapak, Kendall Draper, the Global Talent Officer of the Australian Department of Home Affairs, and also Dr. Eugene Sebastian from AIC, and Ibu Helen Brown, who will be moderating this. As in the wise words of the great Australian rock band, AC/DC, again, on behalf of IABC, we salute you, the panelists, and have a good webinar. And let's make IACPA happen through this process of converging the knowledge and digital economy of Indonesia and Australia. Thank you. I give the Zoom floor back to you, Ibu Helen Brown.
Thank you, Pak George. And I never knew you were an AC/DC fan, so that's something else to put next to your name. Thank you very much for your kind remarks today. Great to have you with us. That is, of course, George Iwan Marindika, the President of the Indonesia Australia Business Council, has now formally opened this event. And thank you for taking the time to join us. I know that everyone is busy and we appreciate having you with us today. It's going to be special. When you think of a tech unicorn, the mind often turns to Silicon Valley in the United States, for instance, China, or perhaps even Scandinavia. Many people are not aware that some of the biggest trends when it comes to innovative product development and scale are happening right on Australia's doorstep, in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia. When it comes to technology, they have seen it, they are testing it, and they are trying new things in this country. It's super dynamic. And to do this, they are also on a very competitive hunt for new talent, new ideas, and people with skills who are willing to push that envelope and help build in a highly competitive marketplace. Now, Bukalapak is obviously one of these. Initially set up to help Indonesian MSMEs grow their businesses using the power of technology, Bukalapak now has more than 100 million registered users, 10.4 million users of Mitra Bukalapak, which is an online to offline business helping warungs or small shops to offer virtual products to customers who aren't connected to the internet. There you go. And 6.7 million online sellers. Those numbers would make the eyes water of many a person in business. And that's why we're absolutely delighted to be bringing you this discussion today in partnership with VGTI, IABC and Bukalapak, because the Centre's mission, the Australia-Indonesia Centre's mission, is to build the links between the two countries and bring together these ideas with researchers, industry, civil society and government. So with that all said, you probably have a few questions of your own and you will be able to ask them a little bit later on. We've just turned the function off for the time being. We'll let you know when you can put some questions to the panelists though. And thanks to those who've already sent through any questions through our earlier communication. So let's meet our guests for today. And firstly, I'd like to introduce Mr. Willix Halim, the CEO, the newly crowned Chief Executive Officer of Bukalapak. Hello, Willix. Lovely to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Helen. Thank you.
And Ms. Rebecca Hall, the Commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia for the Victorian Government. someone who we know well here at the Centre. Rebecca, thank you so much for your time today.
Good morning. Good morning, Willix.
Good morning. And we've got people all over Asia. I won't reveal your locations, but let's say it's fabulous to have a truly Asian event today. Now, but Willix, when I heard about Bukalapak's move, there was part of me that was excited, but also not really that surprised. You know, you and I have had conversations in the past about talent, about how do we train people, about getting that skill set into Indonesia. And congratulations, by the way, on your appointment. That's a great achievement. Now that you are CEO, what do you hope to do with this tech hub that you're going to create in Melbourne, this research and development tech hub?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me in this forum. I met Rebecca, I think 3 weeks ago in Singapore as well, so that was a very good conversation. I think from my side, from our side, you know, obviously, you know, the pandemic has, you know, has kind of made us realize that, you know, there are other avenues to get talents, you know, by remote working and whatnot, and you know, as bad as the pandemic is, I think what also made us realize is that, you know, the new type of working, which is, you know, now everyone at Buka is now working from home, although we are still figuring out whether they should come back to the office maybe 2 days a week just to have meetings and then work at home after that. And I think one of the things that we realized as well as a result of that was that we can actually look at talent elsewhere. While, you know, while it's obviously obvious that our headquarters will always be in Indonesia, and majority of our talents will always be in Indonesia, it also made us realize that, you know, we could actually look at talent elsewhere. And for the last 2 years, we have been, I guess, investing a lot in looking at talents elsewhere. You know, and one of the key countries that we look at is Australia, and Melbourne in particular, because again, in my opinion, you know, there are a lot of good talents out there in Australia or in Melbourne, you know, and a lot of the things that the government of Victoria has done as well to support that, you know, and I've been in that situation, you know, looking at a lot of the support that the government of Victoria have to us as well, kind of made us realize that, you know, this is the right path to kind of get your talents, your overseas talent, as our first sort of tech overseas tech hubs in Australia, in Australia, and you know, you know, Rebecca and the team has given us full support as well. You know, we can't be thankful enough to all the things that they have done. You know, we recently signed an office as well in Melbourne Central Tower, which you guys have probably known as well. And obviously, the key is to really, you know, look at a lot of our engineering, or what we call PTDD, product development and technology talent in Melbourne, on top of obviously, you know, Indonesia as another big talent of engineering for Buka as well. You know, again, I think while everyone else is looking at India or maybe other countries, we are very excited to be looking at Australia, because we do feel like, you know, the experience of running you know, a lot of unicorns in Australia, those are the engineers that we want, and hopefully, you know, that will come to fruition. You know, again, you know, you've seen some of the big folks that have done it as well, like Square, who has set up operation in Melbourne as well, and obviously there's a good precedent as well, and for us to be convinced enough and to be quite certain that, you know, Melbourne is the way to go.
And Willix, talking about talent in other places, you are in fact part of that talent pool, because you went to Melbourne University and you saw what was happening in the university sector and the kind of training that was available.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for us, because we do have a lot of people from Melbourne, from Australia and Melbourne Uni specifically. You know, my CEO of Mitra also came from Melbourne, you know, who essentially runs our entire mom and pop stores operations. I think we have about 20 graduates from Melbourne Uni in Indonesia. So it makes a lot of sense that way. You know, and also a lot of us are affiliated with Australia in some form or the other. My president had you know, did his PhD in University of Sydney, and a few of the other folks are under Buka as well that have been quite affiliated in Australia. So it makes a lot of sense for us to, and then to be able to extend our talent in Australia, and for us that just connects, and also through the networks as well that we have, it allows us to be able to speed things up in terms of hiring of our talents faster as well as, and we have actually managed to do that over the last few months.
Thank you so much, Willix. And to Rebecca Hall now. And Rebecca, it must feel like a wonderful convergence of events in the universe. When did your office start talking with Bukalapak about setting up this hub?
It does indeed, Helen. I think this is a deeply personal one for me as well, having joined the Victorian government only in September 2020, or I should say rejoining, and government and my predecessors, of course, knew Bukalapak and Willix and many members of the Bukalapak team as alumni from Australia. But it was when we actually, during COVID, were connecting with our stakeholders in quite a different way. Imagine as Commissioner for Victoria, I wasn't even able to get to Indonesia. So we were doing lots of interesting webinars. And I think the first time Willix and I met was on a webinar with the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association through a Spark Deacon initiative, where we were talking really informally about the challenges of entrepreneurship, building innovation ecosystems. And from that, and hearing Willix speak firsthand, the team and I were really motivated to be able to see how Victoria and Melbourne could help Bukalapak in their expansion initiative. So I think timing was everything. You'd probably agree, Willix, you were still the COO then. There were some big decisions ahead in terms of your listing and your future. But I think the investments that Victoria has made in terms of creating the state and the city as a tech hub meant that we could go into the conversations with the team with a really strong case. And I guess the case really is about that infrastructure, the ecosystem, but ultimately the talent, because we can't run or host a tech hub without that talent to drive it. So yeah, it was really great timing and delighted to see it come together so quickly. And I happened to be in Melbourne actually when the office was launched earlier this month as well. So just sheer luck and great timing as well.
And how did the idea evolve for a tech hub? Because there are so many things that could have been done for the collaboration, but why was it thought that the tech hub was the way to go?
Yeah, great question, Helen. I think as Willix has pointed out, our experience being home to more than 10 unicorns in Australia and knowing how that ecosystem grows and connects talent. Also knowing that an organisation like Bukalapak and many other homegrown innovative firms around Southeast Asia, it's not about moving a headquarters or moving or taking anything away. It's about value adding to the proposition. So the tech hub idea, I would say, was definitely in collaboration with the team in Invest Victoria, understanding the pain points for what the tech challenges were. But it had also been happening because of COVID. We had seen other tech hub locations that were having challenges finding the right talent, and we were able to, I guess, show the data and show the talent tracking of what we could offer in Victoria. So I think that a key component for us as well is playing into the research and development ecosystem and also creating something which is unique for Victoria. So the conversations focused around Internet of Things, scaling in Southeast Asian markets, and also potential R&D collaborations, particularly with our universities. And I know, Willix, you guys have just signed with an MOU with your former university around that. So not just for talent, but also hopefully for R&D collaboration as well.
Willix, let's, now that Rebecca's sort of painted an idea of the collaboration and what the two countries might share in common, I'm interested to hear from you on the tech landscape in Indonesia at the moment and the sort of environment that you have to ensure Bukalapak survives in.
Yeah, I mean, we are blessed enough to have a government that's very supporting of startups in Indonesia, as you guys have known, and that allow us to be able to scale to where we are today. I think it's also quite interesting to see that the amount of venture capital investment or demand into the Indonesian tech landscape. And that is quite obvious. You know, every news you see, everyone raise millions of dollars, if not tens, if not hundreds of $1,000,000. You know, that shows the I guess the excitement of outside money into Indonesian tech, and as obviously as you know, as that investment grows, there is a lot of demand for engineering tech talents in Indonesia. You know, and you know, I think the first few that have been able to hire lots of the good guys are probably the 4 unicorns, right? Which is, you know, us, Gojek, Toko, and Traveloka, and a lot of the others as well. And you know, while there is a lot of good raw talents, you know, unfortunately, we don't have the experience of running, you know, multi-billion-dollar business like the ones you have in the States, in Australia, for example, for the likes of Atlassian, Canva, and those guys, right? And it requires, as a result of that, some of the talents that you wouldn't be able to get in Indonesia. And that's where this tech hubs comes in very handy for us to be able to get a lot of the good senior folks in the software architecture, in the engineering leadership. And I think that is why all of this makes sense, because again, you know, a lot of the folks now have joined Buka in Australia. You know, used to come from good, some of them from banking, like Macquarie Bank and so on, that you know, essentially has had that experience of scale. And as a result of that, it's always good to pair that experience that you wouldn't have otherwise in Indonesia into our great raw talents in Indonesia. And I think that will be the combination of those two. So again, as Rebecca said, it's not about, you know, cannibalizing one way or the other. It's about making sure that there's value adding between the two. You know, you know, while we always try to, of course, prefer hiring people based in Indonesia, of course, as it is our headquarters. But sometimes if we can't find, you know, especially the good leader and the one that has been experienced in many years in tech industries, in scale, software design and software architecture and so on, we then have Australia or Melbourne specifically to look for those talents. And that has worked really well for us, the combination of both.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, especially when you're operating in a more global market and you're operating against some of the other big tech companies in the region. We've got a couple of really good questions that are business oriented, which I'll get to you with, Willix. They're mainly for you, but I thought it might be helpful to background them by going and just checking with Rebecca on the government process side of things. You know, how Invest Victoria was involved, what sort of were some of the factors involved in making this decision and getting Bukalapak to Australia.
Sure, Helen. I guess obviously we operate within the context of the broader Australian proposition for attracting tech and investment into Australia. So acknowledging our colleagues in Austrade and the members of the Global Talent Task Force, and we'll hear from Kendall later on in terms of, you know, overarching engagement. And then it's up to us as states and territories to identify our value proposition, how we can deliver value for investors, and to really chase down those opportunities. So for us, you know, even within Australia, obviously Bukalapak has choices in terms of where they may set up their talent. But first and foremost, we need to convince investors from around the world that Australia is the first choice. Each of us then, as states and territories, have a range of tools and resources at our disposal. So very fortunate to work with a great team in Invest Victoria, which has actually scaled up our investment resources for Southeast Asia, particularly because of the growth that we've seen in tech. And so that means a bit of a different approach, because tech investment is quite different to other capital intensive investment. It does require us to be able to have that talent pipeline. So part of what we do is actually supporting the talent pipeline with our other agencies in Victoria. We do also support working alongside the Australian government in terms of facilitation services, sometimes incentives to support the establishment, and supporting with business guidance in terms of how to best establish and set up your presence in Australia.
You've mentioned Kendall Draper, so I might just bring her into the conversation, Rebecca. It's a good time to say hello to Kendall, who works with the government's Global Task Force program on finding people that are great to bring into the country, basically, and to help these sort of cross-regional businesses to grow. Kendall, I know that you don't just work for Invest Victoria or Bukalapak, but can you explain your role in bringing Bukalapak to Australia?
Absolutely. And thanks so much, Helen. It's great to be here today. I think a key word that's been thrown around a lot is talent. I am the Global Talent Officer for Australia, based and responsible for Southeast Asia. And look, the hunt for talent is real. It's ramping up. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. And Australia is no exception to that. So we are looking for the best and the brightest to come to Australia and assist. And I think this is such a great example today of what the Team Australia approach is. So as Rebecca highlighted, we're a team Australia. We all work together. So my direct role, while it's just a slight piece in the jigsaw, it's an important piece, and we need to be at the table having those conversations early. So I think my specific role and the role of the Global Business and Talent Attraction Task Force is to make sure that we're all connected and having those conversations. So for example, with Bukalapak, I'm pretty passionate about this one because I had a direct involvement, which was great. Seeing unicorns come to Australia from Southeast Asia is so great, and expansion is just such a great opportunity. So having those conversations and being able to come up with a plan is so important. And I guess the key thing that we were able to do was assist with the rapid relocation of their essential staff to come to Australia for that early phase of establishment.
Okay. And then, Willix, I'm going to just throw to you one of the questions from the audience, and then we can get back to some of the things that Kendall raised, because there's obviously a lot of interest in this business decision that Bukalapak has made. Question is, why did you pick Victoria of Sydney instead for the tech hub? I'm not sure. Perhaps Rebecca might like to say something there. I guess there's, Indonesians know Australia well. They know the cities of Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. So they're probably thinking, wow, why Melbourne? Why would you choose Melbourne compared to anywhere else in Australia?
Well, obviously from sort of, when people think of Australia, those are the three kind of names that popped up. I do think that, first of all, talking to Rebecca and also some of her team members made us realize that, first of all, if you want to set something, you need the support of someone who has been there, right? And Rebecca and her team has been really great to kind of direct us as well, and also to guide us into what is the right thing to do and stuff like that. And as a result, that we certainly feel more comfortable with the support that they have given us to set up the operation in Victoria. Now, of course, the argument is, Sydney probably has better tech and hub and so on. I think that that's probably a bit wrong, in my opinion. I think that they are both equally great. And as a result, that's why we chose Victoria, because of the great government support. Rebecca and her team have been great enough to guide us into, essentially, and Kendall as well, to essentially how to set up the right operation, because that is our first venture overseas, right? Before we have always been based in Indonesia. Now, again, it's a no-brainer, because you look at it. You've got Apple, you've got Slack, you've got Square. They have operations already in Melbourne, hiring hundreds of engineers, if not more, right? And then separately also, you've got a lot of the other good unicorns that have already been based in Melbourne, right? Redbubble, Kogan, and the list goes on and on. So again, and with the great universities like Melbourne, Monash, and so on, again, it's not like one. In my opinion, both are the same, sort of have the same levels of excellence, right? Sydney and Melbourne, and when it comes down to that, then you look at it and you say, well, okay, Victoria. In Victoria, there's definitely a lot better in attracting good talents as well, because everyone is looking at Sydney. And also and second, and the most important thing is that the government has been really great. I've been talking to the government of Victoria for many years. and you know, and I think that you know, the support and just, you know, the way we could work together is kind of why we made this decision. So, you know, I think people will argue that Sydney is better, but I actually doubt that. You know, for me, both are the same. And first of all, if you really want to hire good talents, they can always move to Melbourne, and they wouldn't mind otherwise anyway.
Thank you, Willix. Thanks for your honesty. We started a mini war there, but you know, nothing new. Rebecca, would you like to respond to that at all?
I'm smiling. I'm saying there's nothing better than a partner acknowledging that, but also acknowledging, you know, we in global terms, Australia is still a small market and a small place. So of course, we're building off talent across the country. I think looking at other external indicators, two things for us. We see, and Savills does a report every year on this, looking at tech cities around the world, and Melbourne is Australia's only tech city, and we sit in this ecosystem as a tech lifestyle city. So it's a whole other element that plays into, I think, Melbourne and Victoria's livability, and how much we're investing in that, and how important that is to tech talent and tech businesses. And then I also think for us, as Willix has outlined, this is a partnership that started long before me, and beyond, you know, the two of us or the three of us on the panel as individuals. So there's many other points of engagement and intersection, including, you know, our digital skills team or our Launch Victoria group and our startup ecosystem. So I think it's actually making those connections is really invaluable, and it's something that we have a whole team behind us who are working with the Bukalapak team, and hopefully to identify more opportunities through this process as well.
Thanks, Rebecca. Talking about talent, we've got a very specific question here about talent. And Kendall, you might be able to answer this a bit as well, given that you cover 10 sectors and you know what the demand is there. But Willix, I'll go to you first. This is Dita, who's from The Ken, which, as you know, is an online tech magazine, very strong coverage across Asia and particularly India. And her question is, how many people are you planning to hire in Australia? Are you mostly looking for software developers? And what about product managers? And then the second bit is around the Indian talent pool, and perhaps why didn't you look more there? But perhaps you already are, I imagine. Would you mind answering those, Willix?
Yeah, sure. I think first of all, we're looking at PTDD, which is product, tech, data, and design. So those are the roles that we're looking for in Melbourne. You know, the plan that we share with Rebecca is that we're planning to obviously ramp up to 100 in a period of 3 to 4 years, and that is the plan. You know, again, obviously that would come to my team essentially being able to convince some of the great graduates as well, and also experienced software engineers to be able to come to Buka as well. So currently, I think that is the plan, and hopefully we'll be able to you know, kind of pursue that plan quite effectively. As opposed to, I guess the next question is, why not India? We don't have a tech talents in India. I think it's just again the different way of thinking. I mean, if you know, we like to, again, what are we looking for, right? I think we're looking for you know, engineers that we wouldn't be able to hire otherwise, which is the ones that we're the experts in building a scalable technology, global, you know, sort of companies like Atlassian, you know, Redbubble, and a lot of the other folks, right? And as a result, again, Melbourne and Australia, for that matter, makes a lot of sense for us because we're looking for someone who, you know, who has that experience. And if we look at India, I guess you know, we would prefer Melbourne from that perspective, I guess, without saying too many sort of things around that as well. So again, I think for us, it makes a lot of sense to have our tech in Melbourne, and also, you know, me and a lot of the other folks in Buka have also been quite affiliated with Australia in one way or the other. So again, it makes it easier as well to have that second tech hubs or second hubs in Melbourne, say, rather than in India and so on. I think I can go through again on the economics of the study that we have done as well in terms of dollar and stuff like that, but probably wouldn't talk about it here. But Melbourne does.
No, that's fine. Oh, that was a very good answer, though. Thank you for answering that so thoroughly. And, it does show, I mean, I don't think of Australia as a tech hub, but there's my ignorance, because we obviously have extremely talented people, perhaps not, huge numbers, but incredibly talented and experienced, who are able to provide a certain role for certain companies at a certain stage. So, Kendall, can you take us through, when you're handling these sorts of inquiries from bigger countries or people who want to come to Australia, what sort of interest there is in that tech space?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Helen. I guess we all know that Australia is a lifestyle powerhouse. So I don't think you're being naive to think that, Helen. But as a country, Australia really has a clear plan and a blueprint for the future. So the Global Business and Talent Attraction Task Force is really focused on those future-facing industries that can inject the greatest value into the Australian economy. So including things like advanced manufacturing, health, life sciences, financial services and fintech, renewables, agri-food, cybersecurity. All these kind of things are so key to build Australia's ecosystem. And I think the critical thing, and this is such a great example, is that diversification. The pandemic has taught us that we need to start thinking about our supply chain resilience and our diversification. So working alongside both local talent and foreign talent in these future-focused industries is going to be such a beneficial thing for Australia. And we're very much focused on that brain gain rather than the brain drain approach. So lots of really exciting opportunities in all of those sectors.
Thanks very much, Kendall. That's fantastic. And I realise I said no one can ask questions yet, but of course that's a silly thing, because everyone's asking questions, and of course I'm looking at them and taking them. But they're very good questions. And there's one about culture which I really do want to get to. But first, because I think it's so relevant to the current trajectory, a question from Mohammed Hasib. Can you highlight the main scope of the Tech Hub? Apart from the local talent, do you also plan to have collaborations with local startups or SMEs, especially in tech R&D, for instance, on AI, predictive modelling, that kind of thing? Do you see collaborations there, Willix, and Rebecca, perhaps to you, around how you envisage that other entities might be involved?
Majority of our businesses will be set up in Indonesia. Obviously, the business will always be for Indonesian SMEs. Having said that, we obviously partner with Melbourne Uni and in terms of you obviously be able to develop some of this technology to offer to the Indonesian SMEs, which is essentially our vision, which is to empower as many SMEs as we can in Indonesia. So yeah, I think that is probably the answer to that.
I think, Helen, from our perspective, it's about the role that Bukalapak can play in the ecosystem. So naturally already, and I know Vincent, who's leading a lot of the recruitment work for Willix in Australia, is connecting with some of our startups, with other talent partners, with Launch Victoria as well. So I think naturally, and I think that, not that I'm an expert on the culture of Bukalapak, that's definitely Willix, but I think from what I've seen from the top down and all of our interactions, is an organisation that's very open to learning and contributing, and also understanding how to support tech talent whilst they're students as new graduates, and also bringing them back either to Indonesia or to Australia. So I think George introduced and acknowledged the IA-SEPA agreement, and I think there's a real opportunity here as well to look at skills exchange and tech exchange as well, not just a hub in Melbourne and a headquarters in Indonesia, but actually a continually cycling ecosystem of talent and projects that we may probably haven't even identified yet. So yeah, I think it's a great foundation, and I'm loving the questions too. There's lots of good questions here.
There's some good ones, and I know, Rebecca, the one thing that does come up is around, and Kendall, you might be able to answer this too, can other people go to each other's countries and work, for instance, if, you know, somewhere down the track? Would it make it easier for cross-border workplace migration is a question. And that's a fair question if you want to work in the region generally.
I can jump in on this one, Rebecca. I think, as I highlighted just before, Australia is very much about the brain gain. And I think as part of that brain gain is sharing that knowledge and sharing that experience and that talent, because while foreign talent can come to us, Australians are going to learn off that. And I think it's so critical. The pandemic has taught us that we can't be siloed. We need a good balance of that foreign talent and that local talent. And it's all about sharing the knowledge, those collaborations, diversification. It's really something I'm seeing across Southeast Asia. And I think it's a really great way into the future.
Cool. Rebecca, do you have a moment? Because with the expansion, there's a question here. With the expansion from Janet Adisuwono, what value proposition would you say is Bukalapak bringing to Australia, and what factors do you think it will ensure Bukalapak's success here in Australia?
Oh, some big questions there. I think for us from Victoria, it's about continually adding to our ecosystem and to our global reputation as a tech city and a place for innovation. So our value proposition is about continuing to add to that. And you have to invest in that all the time, all the way from startups to unicorns to big investors and capital. So that's key. The second, and it's just gone off my screen, the second question was around...
Yes. Sorry, I'll see if I can find it. What factors do you think will ensure Bukalapak's success? And Kendall might even be able to jump in a bit too. And then even Willix. I'll let Willix answer that as well.
I might have a first go, Helen, and then, as you know, I do need to run because I'm here in Vietnam at the moment, about to go and meet some tech unicorns and tech startup here as well. So I think the key to success for any tech company at the moment is talent and getting access to that talent, you know, right time, right place, and with the skills that they can hit the ground running. So, you know, we have made a commitment and make a commitment to any of our companies that choose to come and set up in Victoria that we're going to invest in that talent pipeline with them, but also be using the knowledge and the networks of companies that choose to come and set up with us to also bring their ways of hiring, of supporting talent, and hopefully, as the previous question as well, hopefully being able to see reciprocal skills exchange as well to sustain that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. And as she mentioned, we will have to let her go shortly, and very much appreciate her time. Thank you so much. Kendall?
Yeah, I guess just adding to what Rebecca said, I guess the critical thing for me is that Team Australia approach. We need to have a team mentality to this, and it's really important that we're all having the right conversations. So my job is one part of the puzzle, which is assisting those people and making it as streamlined as possible to ensure that companies can get that talent into Australia. So yeah, that's all I would add.
Interesting. I think, Willix, that this comes up, you know, there's still questions around what is the value proposition? How can you ensure that this is a success? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, sorry, on the success of the tech hubs, is that sort of?
Yeah. Why are you feeling confident that this will be ongoing?
There's also a question like, oh, have you not been educated in Australia? Which is first of all, the company is running on the 2,000 people, right? It's run in a democracy way. So first, I cannot, you know, just because I want to set up in one country doesn't mean that the board and, you know, there is a governance, right? There's a board of commissioners and there's a board of directors as well. So it's not my. So
it's not just that you want Melbourne coffee all the time.
Well, then Buka would not be having a good corporate governance that way, right? Or, you know, so again, I think this has gone through a series of, I guess, you know, decision-making processes with the data shown as well on the economics of, you know, why A versus B versus C, and as a result, everyone is very supportive to actually have it in Victoria, including the board of the commissioners and also the board directors and also some of our engineering leaders as well. So I think that will answer that question. So no, not because of that. But I think also ultimately, first of all, I have been involved in setting up another tech hubs, or not tech hubs, another headquarters in Australia, right? And that company is freelancer.com, which I was very part of the beginning of the company when the company was only 5 to 6 people, and that went on to become listed 3 years later and so on. So I, as a result of that, I've had confidence in the talent of Australian talents, and for me, again, like, while looking at it from the outside in might be a little bit different, but I'm confident that a lot of the talents are almost comparable to Silicon Valley talents. I mean, if you look at a lot of the global companies out there like Canva, Atlassian, right, and like the person who invented Google Maps, which is also from an Aussie engineer, like, it's quite obvious that this is the second best thing to after Silicon Valley, and that's why for us it's a no-brainer. And while again it might look very different outside in, right? Or just because it is the most livable city in the world, as a result people might associate it with not working hard. But again, the results shows for itself, and the presence shows for itself. And that's also why people like Square, Apple, Slack, I mean, all of these are not are great companies, and that's why they set up engineering talents there. And those are just a list of the very few that I mentioned out of the many. So yeah, I mean, sometimes maybe looking at outside in might have different mentality and characteristics, but me being there for the last, for almost 13-14 years, it's quite obvious that the talents there are comparable to Silicon Valley talents, and that's why we go there.
Kendall, what about the, talking about, it's a great start to us. It's a great start. There's a need, there's a desire to work together. How do you maintain that momentum? How does your office help you get key people into the country to help them get set up? And what happens after that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I work for the Global Business and Talent Attraction Task Force. So there's 2 elements to that task force. We've been established to promote Australia as an attractive destination for exceptional talent, but also those high value businesses. And our role is to assist in bringing this talent and business to Australia. So the way in which we can assist is what's called, for the exceptional talent, there is the Global Talent Visa program, which is for this individual talent. And what we're looking for is individuals who have an international recognition of outstanding achievement. And what we can offer is priority visa processing to access permanent residency to Australia, which is a great thing. So I think there was a question in the question box around migration and coming to Australia. The task force is here to assist and make that as streamlined as possible. And I think a benefit of that is that there's a real person, myself, on the other end of that conversation. So I can come to the table and assist businesses and individuals through the process as much as possible. In terms of the business side, there's a number of things that we can offer from a task force perspective. And where one of those is the assistance with visas, as I mentioned at the start, to assist those critical staff to come to Australia for a certain amount of time, because we do acknowledge that some of our business visas are only for a short period of time, and the establishment of operations, it's a longer term period. So we can assist companies with that process. We can also assist with things around the new tax incentive. So a number of budget initiatives were announced by the Australian government. And so we can put companies and people in connections with the right people and leaders in the Australian ecosystem to make their relocation to Australia as seamless as possible.
And help them to stay. All right, well, we had a couple of questions around that, so I hope that answers it. Perhaps just let us know in the Q&A. There's also a great couple of questions around culture. Will it work? Because the cultures, the business cultures, the work cultures of both nations are so very different. What's your experience been, Willix? Has that been something you have to put a bit more thought into navigating?
I think it's just a matter of time, in my opinion. If you go to overseas country, it will take you years to adapt to it. And I think for me, it's just a matter of time. But it's a necessary steps to go through if you aim to have a global talent and not just local talent. So from my experience and from our experience, it's just a matter of time that that you'll be able to do that, right? And I think it is a necessary step and milestone as well, so that you can essentially hire talents not just from Indonesia but from global talents as well, to make it a truly great company. Of course our preference will always be Indonesian based, but again, having talents overseas would value add to that as well. So that goes hand in hand. But some of the cultures that that when we went through this, it's been months. To be honest, there are some problems, but not necessarily a major problems for us. I guess being in the engineering part as well, everyone does converse in the same language and whatnot, which is programming language. So it's a lot easier as well. So I think it just takes time. Just like you meet partner of your life, it will take time for you before you decide that you get used to it. So yeah.
Thanks, Willix. And just one final very quick comment from you. How happy are you that this has come together, that this has worked?
Yeah, very happy. I think as much as we hate the pandemic, but it also made us realize one thing, which is talent can be everywhere, not just in specific place. And I think we're very happy that we'll be able to look at talents elsewhere. And majority of them do include Indonesian folks that don't want to move just yet to Indonesia. And as a result of that, with the hope that later on they will move back to Indonesia. So this has definitely added a lot of values for us in terms of a company. And if you ask some of my folks in Buka as well, they would probably say the same thing.
Fantastic, thank you. And that's where we'll have to leave our conversation for now. A lot to get through, and we did get through a lot, which was great. So many more questions, of course, but it was good to have that insight at least, and really appreciate your time, Willix, especially. I can only imagine how precious your time is now. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again one day soon. And Willix Halim, the CEO of Bukalapak, joining us for today's session. Kendall Draper, who's the Global Talent Officer for Southeast Asia, the Australian Department of Home Affairs, and on the Global Talent Attraction Task Force. Thank you so much for your time as well. And of course, we were joined by Rebecca Hall, the Commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia, with the Victorian government, giving us some insight into how hard they worked really to get this Indonesian unicorn to set up a tech hub in Melbourne, Australia. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
And now to close today's webinar, we're going to hear from the Executive Director of the Australia-Indonesia Centre, Eugene Sebastian.
Good afternoon. My name is Eugene Sebastian, and I'm the Executive Director of the Australia-Indonesia Centre. So glad that you can join us today, and a special thanks to our speakers, organizers, and viewers. A big thank you to Bukalapak CEO Willix Halim. Willix, we really appreciate your time and sharing your insights and plans for Melbourne and beyond. When Bukalapak recently announced it had partnered with the Victorian government to create a tech hub in Melbourne, it was appropriate to ask why. And what better way to answer this question than with a panel of distinguished speakers. In organizing this event, we're delighted to partner with the Indonesia Australia Business Council and Global Victoria, the Victorian government's trade and investment body. A special mention and a big thank you to our good friends Rebecca, Kendall, and George. If there is an exciting prospect for closer bilateral partnership, it is in the digital economy space. For the Australia-Indonesia Centre, it is an important area of focus. Our researchers are exploring topics like the digital skills needs of enterprises to digital applications in areas like health, transport, logistics, and supply chain. Also, a special mention about the work the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Austrade, the work they are doing to ensure that Australian businesses particularly benefit from the huge digital trade opportunities with Indonesia. As mentioned, the new bilateral business development program called Catalyst is just one example, from supporting businesses gain greater market access to exploring some of the digital skills and training opportunities. That Bukalapak has chosen Melbourne as an Australia base is, I think, a strategic and far-sighted one. Melbourne is a prominent center of research and education, and it has a large local and international talent pool. It is, for instance, one of the largest destinations for Indonesian students in the world, with many studying management, commerce, and technology. So the discussion today on technology, talent, and trade is a timely one. It's especially timely given how the pandemic and technology are changing the way we work, the way we learn, socialize, and play. So thank you again, and we look forward to more discussions like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Eugene Sebastian, the Executive Director of the Australia-Indonesia Centre. And that ends our webinar and panel discussion for today on why an Indonesian tech unicorn is coming to Australia. I hope we answered some of your questions. It was certainly refreshing to hear from the new CEO, Willix Halim, about the business plan, the opportunity, and the possibilities. Now, if you would like to have a listen again to the webinar, then we will have it online for you very soon. If you go to australia-indonesia.com, that will be available from tomorrow. We'll also have it available as a podcast. And we do have a little survey for you to do. If you could help us out, it would be great if you could fill out that survey, because we want to make sure that we keep delivering events that are of interest to you. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you for joining me, Helen Brown from the Australia-Indonesia Centre, and all our guests. And I hope to see you all again soon.